Taco Salad is a production of GeekTaco.com. Please bookmark GeekTaco.com for the latest in geek culture news. Now, on with your show. Hello and welcome to Taco Salad, your multi-ingredient podcast for everything delicious and geek culture, presented to you by GeekTaco.com. I am your host, Matthew, and unfortunately, I only have one co-host with me, Mr. Chris Cowan. Kaylee Chambers sends her regards. Unfortunately, some last-minute work-related projects and troubles came her way, and she had to duck out for this evening. So tonight's going to be a slightly shorter show, but me and Chris are going to do our best, I promise. So how are you doing, Chris?
Doing good. Bit of a long weekend, but I managed to rally on Sunday.
Good. Same with me. I was out of town for most of the later part of last week and this weekend, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it was a lot of fun. And so, what were you doing? What were you in the middle of? More Pokemon?
I was just really hungover.
Oh, okay, fair. No, that's it happens.
I keep forgetting the life lesson that I've been reminded of, which is never try to outdrink doctors or lawyers.
Love it. Love it. For me, I wasn't drinking as much, nearly that much. I just had to try to drink with my fellow nerds. I was down in Orlando, Florida for a very first ever convention called CreateCon. It's specifically hosted by a network called amove.tv, and if you want to see all their shows, it's at www.amove.tv. It is a little convention about all these different podcasts that deal a lot with Blizzard games, but not almost exclusively so. But most of them deal with Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, Overwatch, all that fun stuff. And I got to talk with these guys, and these guys are great. It was hosted by a gentleman named Garrett Weinzierl. He's sort of a spearhead of this little organization. He's the de facto leader, if my memory corrects. If my memory is correct about that. And it was a grand old time. I got to sit down, chit-chat with them, talk to them about podcasting, as well as just like how they got started, what are their plans for the future. And Saturday was the bulk of CreateCon, where I was able to sort of sit down, and they just did a whole bunch of live recordings of their various shows. And then there were like two panels towards the evening that dealt with specifically like the financial side of podcasting, as well as like how to deal with your co-hosts and all that fun stuff. And it was all capped off by, if anyone is familiar but not directly related to amove.tv, is a podcast called Night Attack. And well, let's just say it's not for the little kids, so I won't like reiterate anything here about that. But if you are of a certain age and you're interested, go look up Night Attack on your podcast, and you'll be laughing within moments. So that was my weekend. That was the bulk of it. And I got in just a few hours ago trying to put everything together for this evening.
As I said, Saturday was just kind of a party hard day, and then Sunday I decided to try to walk it off Pokemon hunting with some friends of mine. So,
were you successful?
Just some greasy food in the morning. Went out and just had some greasy chicken sausage on top of a fried Krispy Kreme donut. Which was delicious. I think it was Delia's chicken sausage. It's a kind of a East Atlanta thing. It's same people that started the Flying Biscuit are running this now. That the Flying Biscuit is apparently in somebody else's hands, but
they probably just sold it off.
Yeah, greasy sausage, egg, and cheese on a fried Krispy Kreme donut. It was delicious. And then Piedmont Park, if you're looking for water and grass type, it's good. There's a good little loop around the lake, plenty of poke stops. If you don't mind paying the extra, going to the Botanical Gardens is chock full of poke stops, and from what I've heard, grass and poison. I'm going to try and check that out this weekend.
When we were down in Orlando, besides just doing the CreateCon stuff, we were able to go to Disney Springs, which is basically what downtown Disney used to be, and it had a crap ton of Pokestops and gyms. And from what everyone was telling me, because they went to the parks that weekend, there's a whole bunch of Pokestops and gyms inside all of the main Disney parks. So that's pretty interesting. The next time we go down, we're going to make sure we're going to grab out my our smartphones and collect as many Pokemon as we can. I finally got my Psyduck, which is fantastic. I love it. I'm gonna keep building them up.
Yeah,
Getting where I'm going.
I've had a spot that I can grab when I take the dog out for a walk. It's just right over the hill, and then I can pretty much always find a Psyduck or a Slowbro. So I actually found a Golduck there one morning. It was fantastic.
Okay,
I,
that oh,
it mainly
thank
we
you.
were all talking about the update that got rid of the tracking altogether.
Yeah,
So there's no more feet. The 3 foot glitch has now become a feature.
yeah. That's what they did. One of the latest updates is that I guess they just couldn't fix the tracking bug, and so they removed it entirely.
Well, from what I've been reading up on it, some people suspect part of it was due to server strain with just trying to keep constantly reshuffling all the distances.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the game has actually been performing a lot smoother since they removed it. Also, they were just trying to cut down on third-party Poke tracking sites.
Mm-hmm.
From what I could see, Pokevision.com is pretty much dead and useless now.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I was talking to my wife Linda about like how to help tracking and help people find Pokemon instead of just being sort of like a crapshoot that it is right now. Um, One of the things I'd love to do is that you have the 9 square map. I'd love it if you pulled that up. Basically, what the it's a radial compass. So the Pokemon that's closest to you is in the center, and depending on which direction the other 9 Pokemon are, that's the direction you have to go in relation to you. So if it's above you, you got to go north. If it's below you, got to go south, left, right. Just basically create just a very simple map of which direction in general I need to go. It doesn't tell you distance, but it does tell you direction, which I think would just be so much better in my opinion.
yeah,
But
Niantic is pretty notoriously hush hush about that sort of stuff. So
yeah.
it was just, I, it's a great social time. I actually get to spend some time with some friends of mine I hardly ever see anymore.
Hmm. I'm
He
really
brought
interested.
his kids with him, and we just had fun. And then we went and ate a gigantic pile of tater tots.
There you go. I mean, I think I'm interested to see what happens in a couple of weeks after sort of like the hype sort of and the adrenaline of it all just kind of peters out and see where things start settling out. I think it'll still be a part of our lives. I'm just interested to see what ultimately happens.
I kind
Um,
of use it as a fitness tracker.
hmm,
I think I'm kind of gearing up to try to do a 5K where I with some people from where I work now. It's a charity thing. So I actually mapped out based upon how many 5K eggs I could hatch. Like mapped out a route which will pass me by some Poke stops and stop at a gym where I can sit down, rehydrate, attack the gym, get up, let all the Poke stops reset, and walk back out before I go into work in the mornings.
mm-hmm.
Um,
That's
so
what
it's
Linda
it's
was
it's
doing.
been a good motivator. I have yet to resort to like strapping my phone to a ceiling fan or the dog as a means of hatching my eggs.
I have not heard those before, but that's fantastic.
And another friend of mine came up with a great business venture. He has a friend who's an avid runner, and he was just like, just charge people $2 a kilometer, strap their phones onto some bandoliers, and just go. Like, because I
Just
mean, the guy
just keep
routinely runs
jogging,
at
man.
least like 10K a day, if not more. So
Man, all right, you're just missing the point at that point. You're just throwing money into the wind, literally. I'm just no, please no. At
yeah,
least
and
strapping to your
it's
dog is like somewhat of it. Like you gotta wrestle the dog, and you gotta give it treats, and you gotta make it move. Cause there's some lazy dogs out there.
we have cats as well, so the dog is constantly chasing something.
That's great. But let's move on away from Poke News to something else. What you got for us, Chris?
I've got a couple of things cooking up. Comic books. I'm going to start off with that because that's my particular geek poison. Recently, if we can get this in frame here,
Yeah, I got
we have
you,
the
Betty and Veronica.
return of the rebooted Betty and Veronica. Adam Hughes, the writer and artist for the series, did a signing at one of the local comic shop slash bars here in Atlanta. So I had a chance to swing by that last Friday, pick up a head sketch of Veronica for a generous donation to a sheepdog charity fund.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that have been following with the rebooted Archie universe, it started off with Archie, which has been fantastic. Mark Waid, one of the powerhouse writers of comics, Kingdom Come is probably his most famous work. Took up the helm with that with Fiona Staples of Saga fame, although she dropped out after the first arc. But it's been going strong. Followed up with Jughead, which is Chip Zdarsky, who is probably the zaniest writer in comics these days, as far as mainstream stuff goes. And then now they've got Betty and Veronica. This one's only going to come out every other month, just due to production schedules for I guess, Hugh's other commitments, and I think Archie's still having some financial fallout from their failed deal with Target, I believe it was. Um,
But what is
so
Betty and Veronica about
it's literally about Betty and Veronica.
in the relationship?
The relationship between them. Archie, the first arc sort of focused on. It began with Archie and Betty being the power couple of Riverdale, having just broken up, and nobody knowing why. And I guess Jughead is sort of this bizarre chorus slash narrator, kind of filling in the fans about it. And so it opens up. Archie's a little despondent over having lost Betty, but they're still trying to be friends. The whole school's like, oh my God, like what happened with Archie and Betty? They were like they've been a couple since like kindergarten. And everybody's bugging Jughead because he's Archie's BFF, and
Mm-hmm.
Jughead's like, he doesn't want to talk about it. I'm not going to push him on it. Let the man have some space, let him heal. And so into town comes Veronica Lodge, and she immediately catches Archie's attention. And
As you
so,
do, as you do.
as you do, the whole classic blonde versus brunette there. Betty's sort of the tomboyish mechanic slash jock slash one of the guys kind of women. And Veronica is very much, she comes from money. She loves fashion.
She's
She's
very well
dainty.
pampered. She's used to a certain standard of living, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and she kind of treats Archie like a bit of a manservant, but he's perfectly willing to accept that role. So the main Archie book, there's tension between the two because Betty doesn't like the way Veronica treats Archie. The cusp of the conflict between the two and Betty and Veronica is that Veronica's dad, Mr. Lodge, is of course a rich industrialist type businessman, and they find out that the classic Pops Diner is being shut down and bought out by this big corporate coffee chain
Mm-hmm.
that apparently Veronica's dad runs or owns part of. So they blame Veronica for possibly losing out on a fixture of the town of Riverdale that's been there for countless decades, and sort of
Mm.
the odd timelessness of Riverdale being a small town type feel, even though they
Yeah.
have all
Yeah.
the modern amenities.
Yeah, it's stuck slightly like 20 years in the past, but
It's
it's still modern technology.
it's that weird comic book thing where like everybody kind of acts like it's the 60s, but they've got cell phones and like flat
Yeah,
screens
it
and
well
stuff.
it's like any media really. It's going for a certain theme. It's going to a certain feel, and so it needs to invoke that timelessness while also still being like relatable to us. It's like, well, why don't we just set a comic book back in the '60s? Well, people aren't going to relate to the '60s directly. They need to have something that anchors them into a modern period
Yeah.
and modern concept, while also invoking that age old timelessness of like Americana sort of
Yeah,
style.
Wade is really really smart about that in the main Archie series. In fact, the split between the two was known as the lipstick incident. So there's all this texting back and forth with students, and even between Archie and everybody's like hashtag lipstick incident.
Yeah.
Yeah, Betty's grandmother and Betty and Veronica is just sort of the classic doddering old lady stuck way back in the past. Betty tells her, "Hey, I'm going to Pops with Jughead and Archie and the gang," and the grandmother yells out, "Don't forget to put on a jacket, or the boys will notice you've developed lady parts." And it's just you could just kind of shake your head and you're like, "Oh, Grandma." Um, the other thing I didn't like about the book is just the characterization across the three titles is a little inconsistent at times.
It's three different authors, right?
Yeah, it's like I said, this is Adam Hughes. The main Archie is Mark Wade, and Jughead is Chip Zdarsky. Although I think Zdarsky is going to be off after a few more issues. Jughead is just a crazy book, so like I don't expect consistency with characterization in that because half the book is just Jughead's weird fantasies,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of
It's
bleeding into
it's it's
reality.
his projection of sort of what he
Yeah,
would
like
like
he
things to be
projects like
like.
spy stuff, superheroes. I think the last arc was pirates and cheeseburgers. As Archie, the Betty and Veronica book just comes across as way less bumbling and clumsy, and he's a little more bro-ish, I guess would be a good term for that. Um, but it still just overall has sort of the classic kind of Archie comic feel to it, but with a lot more modern sensibilities. Um, and then of course they're doing the Riverdale TV show on Fox coming next year
Yeah, that's.
sometime.
I'm interested to see. We'll definitely, audience, if anyone's listening right now, we'll definitely be looking into that show and giving you some sort of feedback on that. See how that goes. If I remember correctly, it's going to be a mid-season sort of like mini-series. Is that right? It's going to
Yeah,
be
and from what I actually got to talk to Adam Hughes a little bit about it at the signing, and apparently their plan is Archie also has a horror line where they do Afterlife with Archie and the Chilling Adventures of, or Chilling Tales of Sabrina, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Both excellent books. They just come out very infrequently.
yeah,
Um, but apparently, from what he has heard rumblings of, is that the Halloween episodes of Riverdale are going to be standalone, one-shot Afterlife with
sort
Archie-esque
of what
themed,
if,
like
sort of a what if zone.
dark. Well, the premise of Afterlife with Archie is that Jughead's dog, Hot Dog, is hit by a car. He takes the dog to Sabrina the Teenage Witch and asks her to fix him. And she tells him, Jughead, he's dead. I can't do anything about this. And he's like, you've got to have a book of witchcraft or something that can bring my dog back. So Sabrina busts out a copy of the Necronomicon
Oh,
and resurrects Hot Dog, who then becomes Patient Zero in sort of a
the
Walking Dead
yeah,
zombie apocalypse scenario. He bites Jughead. Jughead becomes the head zombie, and then slowly all of Riverdale is overrun with zombies.
yeah. So
So it's literally like what if The Walking Dead happened in the Archie universe? Uh, it's it's gripping. It's a frightening book, and there are some really like just get you like Fry's dog esque, just get you in the feels. A couple of issues. Like I said, the production schedule on it is just suffers crazy delays, and but it's worth the wait if you get it. Get the
that sounds
collections.
amazing. I want Ash Williams to like knock through the door. Uh,
Yeah, I think they've only got about 8 issues out, and then Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. It's similar premise, but it's separate from the universe of Afterlife with Archie.
mm,
I think in the Afterlife with Archie, Sabrina gets kind of shunted into like a chthonic dimension to be punished for breaking witchcraft rules. But Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is literally like what if Sabrina was sort of that old school like Crucible style witch, like out of the woods, Congress with the devil
yeah, crone. She's the crone sort of.
type deal, and so it's her living in kind of this 60s s sort of New England town, and her two aunts are crazy like devil worshipping like actual witches, and she's being brought up. She's 16 or so, and she's brought into that world, and it's pretty hardcore,
It
like
sounds it.
ritualistic. It's interesting, and it's dark, and it's creepy, and I think the villain of that is a witch that had been spurned by Sabrina's father, because Sabrina herself, I think, is half witch, half human,
Hmm.
Muggle-born, if you
Yep.
will. Um, so that's something good. So that's if you're not into the whole Marvel DC thing, and you like give Archie a shot. There's a little bit in there for everybody. They do have some superhero comics that Archie puts out, but I haven't read any of them, and I don't know how frequently they put them out. But
Yeah,
they did
I've
have a
heard.
very small superhero universe.
Yeah, I've heard it's got a few things, but I heard the big moneymaker is all the Archie related stuff, and supposedly from everything I've heard, that the Archie stuff is gangbusters. It's good. Just go watch it if you just want good stories. If you're not into just
Yeah, it's
straight up
good.
superheroes, go read this stuff. It's
Yeah,
just good
and the
storytelling.
little digest you could pick up at the grocery store, sort of the goofier, like 40s, 50s Archie. This is much more modern sensibilities.
Right, right.
They've got
It's kind of a
really,
reboot. It's like a solid reboot of
it's
what
a
a mod.
reboot. It's sort of what if Archie was happening in contemporary times.
Right.
So it's definitely worth a read if you've got tweens, teens. It's definitely kind of right in there, very Dawson's Creek
Yeah, yeah,
type, just good clean teen drama.
yeah.
Getting into Marvel, I'm a little behind, but I have been keeping up with Civil War 2. Compared to the first Civil War, it's a much better, tighter premise that makes a little more sense as to why everybody's sort of split down the middle. It's going to be a little spoiler filled, so let's give people a
Yeah,
chance to
if you want
skip
to go
ahead.
ahead a couple minutes, I'm sure we're going to go on to something else. Just Chris, give us a quick sort of synopsis of what's
Okay,
going on.
so the
Got a few other
synopsis
things we
is
need
one of
to
the
hit tonight.
Inhumans named Ulysses. His power set manifests, and it's very much like Minority Report. He can see future crimes happen, And so Captain Marvel and her contingent decide we should proactively, go after whatever he sees in his visions, which then leads to them trying to intercept Thanos, who's attacking to get a cosmic cube that is at a government facility. A big fight ensues. War Machine is killed. She-Hulk is put into a coma. Tony Stark had told her from the get-go, like, this is just not going to end well. Don't mess with the future. Take it from a futurist. Just let the future happen and deal with it as it comes. So he is immediately incensed that his best friend has, in his mind, been needlessly killed due to someone's reckless tinkering with forces they don't understand.
Yeah. I can understand why.
Yeah, a little later on, Tony Stark actually kidnaps Ulysses, scans his brain to really dig into his power set and how it works, as he is immune to psychic intervention. So he finds out that Ulysses' brain is just a giant calculator and that it's running probability calculations and that the future is not definitive, and perhaps some of their actions are helping some of these future visions come true.
Right.
One of his big ones that he can project them to other people if they're close enough. So he sees the Hulk, classic Bruce Banner Hulk, not the current Amadeus Cho Hulk, just going nuts, just wasting a lot of people. So they go to find Banner. They confront him. Tony's like, maybe because we've all showed up at his doorstep, maybe that's why he snaps and murders everyone when we could have just left him alone, and this might not be happening. Carol refuses to back down, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, Bruce Banner's head explodes, and you find out that Hawkeye had an anti-Hulk arrow that Banner had given him, and he took the kill shot because he thought he saw a flicker of Hulkdom in Banner's eye, and he's like, Bruce asked me to kill him if he ever Hulked out again. I kept my promise to him. So end of issue
some serious shit
series,
just has. So you're saying some. Sorry, I apologize for swearing because I'm shocked. I don't keep up with Marvel DC stuff. I don't know what's going on. So you're saying some very serious actions have been taken in the main continuity of Marvel.
Yes. War Machine is dead. They teased that She-Hulk might have died, but so far she's still alive, and Bruce Banner is dead. Given what's in the previews catalogs, there's 2 new Iron Man series coming out, one of which was headed by Riri Williams, a 15-year-old African-American MIT student, and then the other one, it's basically Doctor Doom in his own Iron Man suit, acting as Iron Man, and no one knows what's going on with Tony Stark, so he may or may not survive Civil War. So anyway, like I said, Hawkeye kills Bruce Banner. He's put on trial at the end of issue 3. Issue 4, the verdict is handed down. He is found not guilty, surprising quite a good deal many people. And then She-Hulk wakes up from her coma sort of at the climax of the issue, and Captain Marvel says, Jennifer, Bruce is dead. Clint killed him. He's just been acquitted. And then we also get some inklings that maybe S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing some dirty, underhanded stuff. They're grabbing people, they're accusing them of crimes, holding them indefinitely with no proof, and then sort of the
anti... Black Ops type stuff.
Yeah, so sort of the anti, Ulysses crowd steps up, decides to rescue a woman who had been charged with being a Hydra sleeper agent, and they have zero evidence against her other than just future vision of her doing something.
Right.
And that sort of sets the issue 4 ends with just the 2 sides standing on the sort of the roof of S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, and Tony's like, Carol, this has got to stop, and then Carol's like, Tony, you just clandestinely intervened and freed a S.H.I.E.L.D. captive. I'm gonna have to place you under arrest. So,
man, this sounds much more intriguing than Civil War 1.
Yeah, there was a great scene where Tony, Cap, and then sort of the Illuminati kind of old guard. They pull Carol aside, and Tony's talking, and he's like, "Look, I can see where things are going. We've gotten into this before. We all know how that turned out. I didn't listen to you last time, Steve, and look what happened. And Steve, I'm going to listen to you now. Like, what do you think we should do?" And they all just kind of have it out. And Carol's like, "Look, I don't care if it's an 80% chance of his vision coming true or a 10% chance. If there's a 10% chance Thanos is going to get a cosmic cube, I'm going to go after Thanos every time." And it really just boils down to, as far as Carol's concerned, if the Ulysses thing doesn't work out, she got her boyfriend killed for nothing. And, Tony's like, I know this isn't working out. You got my best friend killed on a lark, and this should never have happened, and you took him away from me.
That sounds. What I like about it sounds like there's a lot more real beef, personal beef between the parties involved.
And this is acting not very like Carol in the main Captain Marvel series, but looking at it through the lens of she just got a man who really, she was in love with killed because of how she decided to handle things. She's got to have this work out in the end, or else,
Yeah.
she's got to carry that burden with her.
Yeah, she just sounds very desperate in my mind. Like she's clinging on to an idea
She's desperate
without
and she's
seeing what's actually happening.
yeah, she's desperate and she's looking for justification. And Tony's acting the same way. Like he's done some stuff. Like the Inhumans are not happy that he kidnapped Ulysses. Like
Right.
there's some big tension between that.
And we're about to
The
get as you said last time, we're about to get the death of X.
Death of X is coming. That'll be the big, probably right after Civil War wraps up. It's going to be the big Inhumans versus X-Men thing. Magneto and some of the X-Men are kind of like a weird little side team. Like Magneto is very wary of the Inhumans having Ulysses, but he sort of also realizes given that Cyclops took action against them, and we still really don't know what that was, which is what Death of X will be getting into. He's very wary of openly starting a war with the Inhumans, but it kind of looks like it might end up happening that way. We'll wait and see. So that's my little corner of geekdom. To anybody out there in our audience, I just don't read DC anymore.
And that's fine.
Although, fingers crossed, there was a rumor coming down that Jim Lee sort of hinted at that the Wildstorm, classic Wildstorm stuff from his Image days will be coming back with Rebirth. So if they start a new Wildcat series, I will be all over that because I love that book.
That would be very interesting to know what happens
I've been
there.
waiting for like the classic Wildstorm stuff to come back just because the little 90s, like 10, 11, 12-year-old Chris was just for those books.
Too many pockets everywhere.
They were edgy. Well, that was Liefeld was the pouches guy, but Jim Lee was it was sort of, Wildcats was his own version of the X-Men without having the X-Men, so it was like just crazy heroes and aliens and
they had alien origin. They were sci-fi heroes. They weren't like, I mean, granted the X-Men were sci-fi heroes too, but
they were sort of like alien human hybrids.
So I hear we don't have like a lot more to talk about tonight, but I hear, Chris, that you are officially grinding through Community. So tell me what your experiences have been.
I took your challenge to heart. I've been grinding through it. I think I'm up around episode 9 or 10 now. I've been trying to...
Of season 1?
Yeah, let me just consult my Hulu queue here and see where I am in the water. I have like 80-something episodes left.
Yeah. Season 4 is going to be, if you really go through all of it, season 4 will be the season that you're like, what's going on? And the reason for that is was the season that Dan Harmon was not on the show. He was taken...
I've gotten through the first 10 episodes. I like the spirit of the show. Like, it really kind of has that same sort of weird Office, Parks and Rec kind of vibe to it. So far, the only problem I've really had with it is I don't like Joel McHale and I don't like Chevy Chase. So I'm so much more interested in what goes on, like, with Abed and everyone else but the main character.
Well, after a while, and you'll see this in season 2. Season 2 is where Community really, like, gets its stride, is... the main characters they don't exist anymore. Everyone's the main character. There's just episodes that some focus more on them than others. What you'll start seeing is that what Dan and the rest of them are doing is focusing on 1 or 2 relationships amongst the group, and then that's what sort of carries the episode through.
Yeah. That was the real magic to Office and Parks and Rec, was like everybody was kind of a main, you had sort of your Superman clique of like Michael, Dwight, Jim and Pam, but then there were episodes that were like, let's see what's going on with Toby or Oscar, and then with Parks and Rec, Donna had the Donna and blanking on Aziz Ansari's character Tom. Everybody loved a good Ron episode, and then like when Ben and Leslie got together, it's just So if it moves more towards that, I'll probably start going through them faster.
It will pick up steam, I promise. You'll start enjoying it more. There is more relationship stuff that's going on between them. Each character starts getting a very distinct flavor and voice, with just a delightful menagerie of off-ball secondary characters. Because you got to remember, this takes place at like a community college, so these are like most of the student body are not like your Rhodes Scholars. So there's a lot of weird characters that show up, especially like substitute teachers and just like was it Starburns, which shows up. I think you may have already met Starburns.
Yeah, I've met Starburns.
He keeps showing up every so often. Also, by second season 2, they also start like being self-referential, and they start like having continuity of tradition of like the season, like I think starting in season 3, every season has to end with like or have a paintball episode, which you haven't seen yet, but you'll
Yeah,
absolutely
I'm aware
adore
of
it.
the paintball thing, and then the whole like 3 season long Beetlejuice joke.
Yeah, yeah,
That
like
also like I really love Kim Jong. Like he's hilarious in that show. So I
mm,
was like, I just want more of him.
yeah, and you're just gonna get lots more of him. You're just gonna get lots more of everyone because everything. Abed, like I think in season 3, because I never saw season 5. That's actually one thing I haven't done. And when you get close to season 5, I'll sit down and watch it, and we can go over it. But I know season 3 and season 4, Abed really gets a little more center stage in a couple of the seasons. He becomes sort of an overarching thing because of his relationship to everyone else and what he's all about. Because he's sort of the untapped potential of all these characters. And he's also the nerd, and a lot of nerds like the show, and so they see a lot of themselves in Abed and what he's trying to do, especially with all his film stuff.
Yeah, and I actually went to a 2 year community college. It was a commuter college, so it didn't have sort of the weird, dorm life. But I worked as an RA when I finished my bachelor's a couple of years later. So I definitely saw a lot of the quirky college characters you would
Yeah,
see in a
yeah.
show like Community.
So you're obviously you're enjoying yourself. What do you like? Give us some. Obviously, you told us like specifically what you sort of like the characters you like, but what are you liking overall about the show itself?
I like that style of humor. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, honestly, like I don't really like Joel McHale. I mean, Chevy Chase is funny, but just he's such a horrible like reputation that I can't watch him without wanting to punch him in the face.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
it's just
unfortunate, but it's true.
yeah. Like Bill Murray probably has one of the best quotes about Chevy Chase that I've ever heard, which I will try to censor my language here, but basically Bill Murray's like, you can come up, you become famous, and you have a certain amount of years in which you can act like a total a-hole,
Yep.
and then you have to stop. And he's like, and Chevy Chase just never stopped.
Ah, I get it. I
So
see. Oh, that's unfortunate.
yeah, so that's kind of I mean, not that Bill Murray is the nicest guy in Hollywood either, but when Bill Murray, who's kind of notoriously known for being weird and kind of abrasive, says you're too abrasive, like you have a
You've
problem.
gone you've gone a hair too far. That's
Yeah.
that's probably why we haven't seen Chevy Chase even in his later years do a lot of work. Like
Yeah, just
Community was
I have a very good family friend who's a cinematographer, and he was like, "There's just certain people that it's just gotten to the point where like no one wants to work with them anymore, and they
right.
just don't get roles."
Yeah, because Community was like what brought Chevy Chase back onto sort of the main stage. Like as the popularity of Community increased, his reputation increased as well. But that caused a lot, from what I've heard, a lot of because Dan Harmon does the podcast Harmontown, and that man gets drunk a lot on the podcast, and he has no problem telling tales out of school, and he has gone to town about like the stuff that happened at on Community towards actually the point like when he got fired, let go from Community. That's when he was like a couple episodes into Harmontown. So if you want to go back and look and hear what he has to say about the entire fiasco, and one of the things he does goes into a little bit is Dan Harmon and his like conflicts with Chevy Chase. In that Chevy Chase, as you said, is a hard man to work with. He was starting to demand more lines, more jokes, more. He wanted to bring his profile up via Community, and Dan Harmon was like, "That's not what this show's about. This show's more about the community of these weird all balls and the relationships with each other. So I can't just like because you want it and you're supposed quote unquote a big star. I can't just acquiesce to what you want. I have to the creative process is more important than your ego. So
Yeah, I mean that's the problem when you have people that used to be kind of one of the titans of the industry 20, well, actually probably more like 30 years ago now.
mm-hmm.
Coming back and like it's like you're kind of a side character, and just you just need to accept that you are a side character in this and not
I
not the
mean,
main
and
man.
And that's why he left the show after like in season 5 he was gone. And they bid farewell to that character, because he couldn't stand being on the show anymore, and they just wrote him off, which is fine, which is good. I mean,
I feel
and
like it's stuff like that works more in small doses. Like when they, after Steve Carell at The Office, and it was like, they had James Spader for a little bit as the super weird boss, and
mm,
Kathy Bates and a few other people, and I was like, it worked. It was just cool enough to be weird, but I didn't feel like they were trying to take it. Even with like Rob Lowe in Parks and Rec, like, he did fine with his part, and I'd never really heard anything about him trying to be a diva and be like, no, there needs to be more Chris Traeger in the show.
mm,
Um, but I think it definitely kind of helped him move on to bigger, better projects in the future,
yeah,
and so
and
I
that's
don't
what I say. If you're a
really.
little humble, if you're a little humble with a popular show, even if you're a side character, I think it works out better in the long run because you're more of a cooperative personality. Plus, there are people who have characters that have have what am I trying to go for? Have short series. Firefly comes to mind with the main character. Oh, his name was in my head. What's his? Um,
I can think of like all of his characters' names, but I cannot pull the actor's name out of my mind now.
oh, it starts
Um,
with an H. I promise.
Nathan
Oh,
Fillion.
Nathan Fillion. Thank you. Yeah, like Nathan Fillion, he got sort of vaulted into nerddom by Firefly, and he kind of stayed there. And because he embraced that community, he didn't try to go for bigger and better things. Even though he did go on to go good things with, I believe, was it Castle?
Castle, yeah, which
Yeah.
didn't really like the way they ended it, but I'm glad they ended it where they ended it because of what they were doing. Essentially, the last season of the show, they would have gotten rid of Stana Katic, who played Detective Beckett, for
Mm.
budgetary and probably personal reasons. Because I believe, from what I did a lot of digging around about it, and apparently her and Nathan Fillion just stopped getting along.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was kind of his show. And then they were going to get rid of Laney, the medical examiner, just because they needed to free up some budget money
Yep.
because their budget had been cut.
And so when you have a small role but you embrace it and you give thanks to that community, the community can move you on to other things. And Chevy Chase, I feel, was a missed opportunity. If he had just like sort of like acknowledged where he was and what he was supposed to do, I think he would have gone a lot farther than where he ended up being. So
Yeah, but it's like you just have to be able to let go of the fact that you're not like a box office headliner anymore. It's
yeah,
just,
it's just it's sad to see it happens and all
I
that
mean,
good stuff.
like look at Kiefer Sutherland. Like, he used to be and he kind of just was like, a lot of movie actors are like, yeah, don't ever fall into TV. But sometimes it's like, well, that's where the work is, and
Yep.
he's kind
I,
of back in the spotlight more than he
I would
was.
almost gather that's actually where a lot of actors need to go. Actually, TV movies are great, but movies are sort of formulaic now because they need to bring in lots of revenue for the studios to feel comfortable to make them anymore. If you
Yeah,
want to
part
do,
of it's just the shooting schedules for TV. It's longer commitments. It's way more grueling. It's
yep,
it's just more work. I mean, it's
it's
not
more
like soap
work,
operas,
less
which are just.
money. It's going to more or less, depending on your show, going to be less money. But as an actor, I can see if you're truly a person of the craft of acting. Not to say that people actors in movies cannot be of the craft, but I can see where a lot of really good actors go to TV now, especially like Netflix, HBO. The people who have slightly bigger budgets can embrace sort of what their craft is, really get good at it, and sort of express themselves in that way while also making a decent living doing what they're good at and what they like to do.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of which, another sort of getting into nerdy TV, geeky TV again. Callista Flockhart is not going to be a series regular on Supergirl
mm-hmm,
post move to the CW. She'll just be a recurring guest star. Um, Partially, I think it was because they've moved shooting locations from LA to Vancouver, which is
yeah,
where most of the other CW shows shoot. Probably also the CW did reduce the budget for the show, so they're probably like, she's probably the bigger budget pull.
mm-hmm,
So they're adding in Snapper Carr, who's probably going to be more the day-to-day running Catco
yep,
media.
and
And then,
that's
like I
and
said, I think I'll also be really interested to see what they do with sort of Wentworth Miller and Kate Cassidy or Katie Cassidy,
mm-hmm.
having their sort of you're a series regular, but you're not tied to any one show. And then they'll be doing their own sort of little Legion of Doom. So we will see more of the Matt Letcher version of Eobard Thawne versus the Tom Cavanaugh version. And I read a very brief interview with him, and they found out that he actually is getting his own Reverse Flash suit and not having to use the one that Tom was wearing.
Oh,
Uh,
this
which is
this
weird
suit
because actually Matt
smells,
Letcher's
guys.
taller, but just the way they
Can I
shot
get a new
things.
suit, guys? This one smells. It's like somebody's been
Yeah.
wearing it for 2 seasons.
Well, apparently Letcher, and I couldn't really tell this from the show, is several inches taller than Tom Cavanaugh, but
Mm.
I never would have noticed that, I guess, from the way they shot things. So he was like, I'm taller than Tom, and I'm a little stockier, so this thing was a super tight fit. He's like, but they made me my own suit now, so it's much more
Yeah, so it
comfortable.
doesn't feel, which I'm cool with. I'm actually super excited for all the CW stuff coming down the lane. I'm was both thrilled and a little disappointed with the ending of Flash in season 2. Spoilers, everyone. Season 3 and all the CW shows are going to basically be tied together now because of what basically they're doing Flashpoint in the Flash show proper, which they have already said that it's going to have repercussions across the board between all the shows, which is probably how we're going to get Supergirl. I think we've mentioned this before on the show, but
Yeah, it's probably some sort of multiversal collapse
yeah,
involved.
we're gonna get some very new, and they did release the trailer for Flash of season 3, and there are definitely some strong hints of what's going on, and like as you said, we're gonna get more of the original, not more of the Eobard Thawne Reverse Flash rather than the Tom Cavanaugh. No, not Tom
Yeah,
Cavanaugh. Yeah,
the Harrison Wells
yeah,
the Wellsabard Thawne, as
yeah,
he
yeah,
was known in the fandom.
yeah. Yeah, the actual Reverse Flash rather than sort of this other version of him, which is fine. I want to see what that actor can do with that part,
Is
even
very
though
much
Tom
like a
Cavanaugh
body
is
snatcher reversal. And honestly, I enjoy Tom Cavanaugh as an actor more than Matt Letcher, but partially just due to I've seen more stuff that Tom Cavanaugh's
right.
been in. But I'm interested to see because the few scenes that had Matt Letcher, like just the sheer malice on that man's face was so much more palpable than Tom
You
Cavanaugh.
are
Like he had a
up.
much more sinister take on the character, but Letcher was just evil.
You're correct, and problem is that's what made Tom Cavanaugh like the best actor on that entire show. Like season 1, I was like, I think everyone's doing just a fine job, but I'd like to see more Tom Cavanaugh, please. Can we just sit here and watch Tom Cavanaugh be sinister and have all these machinations going on and say these really like cryptic but powerful speeches to Barry? Whereas the actual Reverse Flash, the Eobard Thawne version, we haven't seen a lot of. There's a lot of malice there, you're correct, but actually I have a feeling like since they have not told me the backstory of why Eobard Thawne doesn't like Barry so much, it's harder to buy, and therefore comes off more literally like a cartoon villain rather than a character, which Tom Cavanaugh made that character a character, somebody who feels fully fleshed out and real.
Yeah, I'm getting a little sick of the speedster villain thing, which I think they're gonna have some more
100%.
speedsters in season 3, but just at some point I'm gonna be like, guys, can we just not have a speedster?
They are gonna bring a another masked villain that will be part of the entire season. His name is Alchemy, and he will be a problem for the Flash to deal with. Now I have a feeling that he's probably going to be mostly for a Kid Flash villain because they brought Wally West in, and he is going to get a suit. Now we don't know if that's just going to be like the first couple episodes where Barry is dealing with the Flashpoint issue.
Yeah, from what I've read, it's Wally's sort of the. He's not even really Kid Flash. It's just Wally's the Flash, and
Mm.
Barry didn't become the Flash, and he never really grew up with Joe and all them. So there'll probably be some weird alt verse few episodes in the beginning.
And I'm
Um,
wondering how much of that they keep and they take away.
yeah, I'm really hoping Arrow kind of swings back more towards season 1, season 2, sort of just darker Batman light type stuff, and not this weird Oliver Felicity bizarre
Yeah,
romance thing.
they need to get back to what the character was all about, and the character is all about like pathos. Like he's walking pathos. That's the point. He is a low rent Batman. That's also the point. And unfortunately, since they brought the superheroes out, it's not that you can't put him back where he was, but it's going to be very hard to do so.
Well, the
Um,
thing for me is like Batman doesn't see himself as a bad guy in
mm,
any real sense of the word, whereas in Arrow, at least, there's been moments where Oliver's like, I am not a nice, decent person. I
oh,
am a hunter and I am a killer,
well,
and
Batman
I'm going
thinks
to try
that
to use that for the betterment of the city.
I,
He's like, but I
I
acknowledge that, like, I am not, in my heart of hearts, a good man.
I would argue that Bruce thinks that too. Now, he doesn't consider himself a bad guy, but he does consider himself a dark person who's like, I break people's arms to get information for what I want. I may not kill anyone, but I do everything and anything up to that point to get what I need to or to help and save people. He uses that last bit of helping others as justification for all his brutality. So they're very much alike. It's just, come on, Arrow uses literal a lethal weapon as his instrument, whereas Bruce uses lots of weird tools and his fists. And
Bruce is more into the fear, intimidation. I mean, if you want to go all star Batman, he's like, I'm going to break your elbow and your arm's never going to be the same again. And every time the
yeah,
weather gets cold, it's going to hurt. You're going to think, Batman did this to me
yeah,
because I'm a criminal.
yep,
I mean, Oliver's, especially in his weird quasi Suicide Squad esque role with Waller in between the
yeah.
islands
It's
being
it's
rescued, he just straight up did some really bad Black Ops stuff.
yeah,
And
and
it's like,
and
that's a part
that's
of me.
when his flashbacks were really interesting to me because his flashbacks are there to build up the darkness that is inside Oliver Queen, where part of the series became his sort of battle between good and light, which is fine. I just think they brought it out too much as a literal representation last season of like you, Oliver Queen. You have to decide between good and evil. I'm like, no, guys, it needs to be all in here, not external. You can't make it an external thing. You have to make it an internal thing. But
Yeah, I think just also with the decision to not stick with sort of the classic Canary Arrow romance and to kill off Black Canary, which I'm hoping Flashpoint undoes, please.
please. I mean, I love Felicity as a character. The actress is good. She's fine. I like their play, but I think the actress, and I apologize, I don't have the name in front of me. The actress they got to play Black Canary, the original, was perfect. She was a great Oliver Queen foil. You could see them getting together in a real relationship. They both became badasses in the 5 years. They both became different, stronger people for it. They both had their different perspectives on things. It was a really cool moment of like Oliver going, you know what? We don't kill people. This I'm trying not to kill people. Please don't kill people. I think it'll end out better for us if we do that. We will be better people rather than the monsters we think we've become if we do that. And I liked where that going, and then they killed her off, and now they've killed Laurel Lance, and that was just starting to get kind of interesting, and then they
Yeah, and
killed
then
her
it's just,
off.
I mean, their whole sordid history of like they've been a thing, and he was seeing her sister on the side, and then she came back
And
into the
that
mix,
was
and
also what was good about season 1 and season 2. There was a lot of like interpersonal friend and family drama. It was a lot less about sort of the overarching story like of the villain and much more about how are they going to juggle these interpersonal relationships.
yeah, I feel like with the whole Felicity thing, it just got to be this really stale. Like Oliver's got a secret, she finds out about it, she gets mad, she pouts, she breaks up with him. Something happens, they get back together. He gets another
He does it
secret,
again,
and then some it got stale, it got old. Like
and I 100% agree with you on that.
yeah, it just the Felicity fandom in general, from just poking around the edges of like the Arrow subreddit and looking at stuff on social media, like they're just weird and like they harass Stephen Amell because they were like, you and Emily Bed Rickards should become a real life couple, and he's like, I'm married and I have a child. We're just like, you understand this is a television show, people.
Fandoms
Like
are
I'm a
weird and
person.
they get a bit extreme. Let's
Yeah,
just
I mean
put that
I've
out there.
seen like where they Photoshop like her face into like actual pictures of Stephen and his wife and family, and it's like Felicity's face over, and it's just like please people, like just leave your house, get a life, go take a walk, get off Tumblr, and just take a deep
Yep.
breath and just realize this is a fictional world.
But anyways, we're actually getting close to time, and we've ranted a lot about a lot of different things this evening. So if you want to rant at us, you can rant at us at tacosalad@geektaco.com. If you want to find me personally, I'm on Twitter at @bioimportance.
You can find me. I'm at Mutant Biscuit. Fair warning, I really don't check my Twitter that often.
It's fine. Just send us an email. That's probably the absolute best way to get in touch with us if you have direct feedback about the show, good or bad. I am open to all. Also, you can reach if you want to talk to Kaylee, and again, she sends her apologies for this evening. It is at Shadows Dawn with an underscore at the very end. Yes, I know on the template's wrong. We'll get that corrected. And for everyone here at Taco Salad,
feedback, discussion topics for next week.
Yes, please. Sorry.
Any and every suggestion within reason.
Yes, we're totally open to everything, and we will hopefully have all three of us back for a full show next time. So again, as I was doing my outro, for everyone here at Taco Salad, geek out.